Hello, this is Will Faber from Art to Ride, and we had a request to show some horses and show some pictures of horses developing over the top line. So that's what we're going to do today. This is Legolas, who you all have seen, and once again I suggest, if you're curious, to go back and look at some of the earlier videos of this horse. He's been with us about 2 years here at Art to Ride, which time when he came, his neck was just this part of his neck here. So I want you to zoom in here where you can see, try to get him to just stand with his head a little more normal. There you go, like that. So you see all this thickening up here. That's the top line that's been added. When we started this horse, that was his neck, was this part down here, and it was quite U-necked underneath here. So turn him sideways there again a little bit. So once again, when you see this triangle right there, and you stretch his neck out, you see all that. That's all top line muscle. Now follow along. Now you see how this back is strong and it's actually pushed up through here, and how evenly it contours. Now this horse is a horse that had a little bit of a roach back, which is why you see this little bit of a lifting here, but even that's almost gone. It was quite pronounced when we started this work. But once again, you see how there's no dip in the loin, doesn't fall away here. It's quite filled out. This is that strong part of the loin that we talked about that has to be developed. But you don't want to see it develop, like if you see a lump here, like a bread roll, that's from a horse that's been developed in tension with its back down. So they'll develop a big bread roll that comes over here like a lump that goes across the loin like that. That's from being compressed, but yet having the spine down at the same time, but being compressed in this way. And once again, as you can see, he just follows nicely the line, how nicely fleshed he has all over. And you can just kind of stand back, and you back up with the camera and just let his neck stretch out a little bit forward ahead of you there. And you can see how nicely developed that whole neck is, like there, when he stretches out like that. And once again, you can see how the belly, even standing, now this horse hasn't worked today, but even standing here, you can see that he's engaged up through his core, which once again, remember, it's not just getting the back to lift, it's getting the whole core to go that way. So he has to, like a person, you have to engage your abdominal muscles in order to straighten your back. Well, horses are exactly the same way. So this is what we're looking at. That's good developed. This horse is just now coming into collection and starting to be able to sustain it. And I would expect to see this kind of muscling before I would ever see any kind of self-carriage and to be able to develop real collection. All right, now we're going to take a walk over here and we're going to take another look at another couple of horses. To follow me along, we're going to come over here and take a look at Balador. Now Balador, who is a horse that we've been working on for some time, I think if you come around on this side you'll be able to see this better. Now when we started this horse, he came and he actually had holes in his saddle, in his back right here that went all the way to the bone, and he was almost completely sway back. But once again, you see how he is still a little bit dipped right here behind the withers. There isn't that sense of it pushing up like there was on Legolas. Once again, you see how this is still dipped a little bit down. It's still a little hollow, and you can see a little bit of those hollows there still from where he had the big dips in his back. A saddle had just been so ill-fitting on his back that it had just cut off the circulation so bad that it dug all the way down to the bones. But him, we can see if we stand back, he is pulling his gut up a little bit. Now he just worked today, so why you see him wet. And we can see that this is filling in fairly nicely and lifting here. Compared to what it was, it's much, much better. But now let's look at his neck development here. You can still see that he still has quite a bit of this underside neck muscle here, and he's nowhere near developed. Remember we saw on the last horse, and we saw how completely developed he was through this part of the neck. This is the part that you don't see much on this horse that's coming yet. So once again, you probably won't see that till you're into your second year of work with most horses. But of course, conformation makes a big difference what they look like. So now let's take a walk over here, and let's take a look at Contigo. Now Contigo, as many of you know, he's 23 years old now. He was a stallion that we started rehabbing when he was only 16 years old. And he actually used to be quite sway-backed and looked very downhill. He had kind of a big butt, but it sloped downhill and it was dropped here. But you can see on this horse how this is lifted. This is what we would like to see on Balador and every horse we see here. See how that's lifted a little bit. And if you follow back in the loin, look how beautifully developed he is across the loin. And you can follow it all the way back. There's none of that dropping away. As we talk about kissing spine, you've heard us talk about when you see horses come up here and they've got a big bump like this over their hips, people used to call that a hunter's bump. What that really is a bad riding bump. It means the horse has been being ridden in a shortened frame, hollow his whole life. So once again, you see how with this horse, and once again, he's just coming, we started rehabbing him at 16. He's 23 years old now and going well better than he's ever gone because he hasn't been really sound since he was 4. But he's going absolutely beautiful now, and it was really worth the wait. And once again with him, you can see that neck muscle developing too quite nicely across the top line. Now of course he's standing in the cross ties here, so you see a little bit more of that underside neck, but look how nice and thick that is above. You see he's developed that. And it used to be, he used to have a big stallion crest, but that was really all fat. When you see some stallions, they have a big a big lump of muscle kind of up here. It's not really muscle, it's just fat when you can shake it like that. But the muscle we're talking about is down under here. Once again, that's the filling out that we're looking for through this part, when that thickens. And then what happens over the 2 years of work, the withers has now pulled up, which is what flattens here. So once again, remember, as horses work, about a 2-year process of working in the stretch, they pull the withers up and come forward like this, so this part pushes up here, and now you have a horse that's able to bend. And remember, no horse can bend until it's longitudinally bent, that is, until it lifts its back. When the back is down, the vertebrae are locked like this, and it's almost impossible to bend a horse from side to side. You don't have to worry about bending horse, you have to worry about getting the back up. As soon as the back comes up, the vertebrae became unlocked, and it's easy to bend them. So just know that if you're having difficulty bending your horses, it's because their backs are not up. So once again, I hope that helps and gives you a better idea of, we're going to shoot just back over here once again, just out of contrast, where you can kind of see these two horses standing there in the cross ties. And once again, on this one, you can see this big shark fin withers. Once again, this is much better than it used to be, but it's starting to push up, but there's still a little dip down through here, and there's still even a little dip through here. This is an extremely difficult horse. We've had to work very hard to get the top line on because he had so many back problems that exacerbated. But looking right across there, and then looking over at this one, once again, this is a good angle to see his top line here. And once again, you can see this beautifully developed top line here. All this, you see, this is what would be there had the top line not been there, but all that's the muscle that's been added. It heads all the way up there, and once again, look how he's pushed up through the withers there, just like that. Now, of course, all this work is much easier when we do it with horses that are young and we don't have to reschool them. But they can all get there in time. It takes about the same amount of time. We've trained everything from horses that were, had never been worked to ones that have been worked for years and hollow and babies. And it really takes about the same amount of time, about 2 years, to get them working fully over their back to the point that you can begin to develop collection. I hope that helps. Thank you so much. This is Will Faber from Art to Ride.